No, we're live. Woo! You are looking like the new Christmas theme, holiday. Sorry. Holiday theme. Holiday theme. Hey, welcome to the GovCast. Early December. Ian Koniak in the house today. Look at this. We got holiday.
I like the green. Next week we'll do red.
Producers are all out.
I was tempted to wear a red sweater today and my Santa hat, and I was like, maybe I should save it since my props are coming.
Yeah, we got a couple weeks. We got a couple weeks before we go full live holiday time. Sorry, yes, we just wrapped up Hanukkah. This is holiday time, not Christmas. Holiday. Sorry, my fault.
Holiday.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble right out of the show because Lacey couldn't cue up the intro. We got rid of her. We're back to Kelly's back producing. We're old school today. Ian Koniak's here. So it'll be a great show. Ian, if you are unaware of him, the top sales rep at Salesforce for many years, and now is out doing his own thing. So super excited to have him on the show today. Will be great joining us back-to-back meetings, squeezing him. He's squeezing us in his busy schedule. So appreciate that immensely.
What room are you in?
What's that?
I don't recognize your background changes.
This is it. I am moving. That's top. I am moving to Texas. My office is on Bear. We're closing on Friday. I am out to Texas. So this is my last show. This is it. Last show. For any technical
I'm
issues,
getting dizzy.
for any technical issues, apologize. I got no lights. I'm on dial-up internet. I am. This is my last official function from Florida. And I become a Texan in 48 hours. So,
You excited? Are you nervous?
not excited, nervous, never lived in the middle of the country. I've only lived on the coast. So we'll see how long I make it as a Texas resident. I'm excited to go eat. Rudy's, In-N-Out Burger, here I come.
You're going to gain 50 pounds and lose any sight of a tan.
No. That's right.
Sorry.
The tan part is probably true. But I have Invisalign. I just got Invisalign too. So like you cannot eat ever. You're not allowed to eat. You have to take these out.
We discussed this.
I cannot get them out of my mouth. So I've drank more water in the last 3 weeks because I can't get Invisalign out of my mouth and you can't eat anything. So I should be good as much.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a big mess of stuff.
Well, we'll miss you. I don't know when we're going to see you in person again.
I don't know.
Maybe March.
What would be in March, right?
Maybe March 12th. I don't know.
Oh, somebody's getting married?
3 months, yeah. And to top it off, this is just going to sound whatever. I didn't know I had gray hair, and I found gray hair last week, so I think that it's doing it.
Ooh, that's it. When you get married, you get the gray hair there. That's definitely, look, you didn't, and you have black hair too. It's going to pop.
And so, yeah, you'll see it. The anxiety is high, a little.
You're too young to have salt and pepper hair. So,
I'm 31.
Like I said, too young. Look, March 12th, right?
Yep.
So that we could be on the show doing big things?
Yeah, I'll still work Wednesday.
That's super exciting. Well, great. Any other updates before we bring on Ian? Anything else you want to have for the holidays?
No, I should probably start Christmas shopping. I haven't started yet.
Ooh, yeah, you're I don't know if you've heard about the supply chain's jacked up. Nothing's around, so.
You know what? It's going to be light this year, so.
It's going to be, just put in, I would have got you a nice gift, but I'm getting married. It's a wash.
We'll be good. It'll be easy. I'll start today.
I'm doing the same thing. Look, I'm moving. Love you so much. Gift next year.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, I'll double down next year.
Yes. So great. Listen, I want to bring in, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to bring in Ian Koniak. If you follow the show, there you go. That's Ian, that's legit. We don't pull the clap for just anybody.
Special.
I love all the drops, the applauses. I'm just laughing over here.
Kelly's got a whole list of stuff. Look, she's like back in the scene, back in the seat today. So she's ripping out all the old stuff we have. So how you doing?
Congrats, Andrew, on getting married. That's exciting. I'm good, Jack, and congrats on moving. It's exciting.
Yeah,
both you guys.
Andrea's fiance works at the company too, so it's very they've met here, and so it's all a couple people getting married.
Keep it in the family.
There it is.
Moving on.
And full disclosure, Ian and I have known each other for some time. I consider him a friend, and so I try to blackmail him as he's super busy. Left Salesforce and started his own coaching business. So why don't you tell folks about that process you've been through here the last couple months?
Oh man, it's been crazy. So I got off literally a call with a developer that I have who's in Spain, who's helping me build out sales pages and funnels and all kinds of promotional material for a program that I'm building, which is a 12-month coaching membership site. The reason I left Salesforce is because I have had a ton of fulfillment and joy while coaching, and it's something I've wanted to do full time, but I wasn't necessarily sure if I could scale and grow the same income that I had at Salesforce. And what happened is I just kind of took the leap of faith recently. I left officially in September, and it's been an absolute uphill ride, wild since I left. I have 400 people signed up for the wait list now for coaching.
Holy cow!
Yeah, it's amazing. I have an 8-year backlog in my current model. So I quickly realized it doesn't scale to do one-on-one. So I'm building out a membership site. I'm building out group coaching, online coaching, and I'll still have one-on-one for, a small number of clients. But my goal is to support the broader sales community and really bring the programs and the teachings to a wider audience. And so that's what I've been working on the past few months. It's in full development. It's super exciting, and it's keeping me very busy right now. So
that's so awesome. We're going to spend, we're kind of doing a series of show about goal setting. Before we get into that, I'd love to, Ian, as much as you're willing to share, I'd love to talk about kind of your goal process, right? Maybe if you tell folks kind of about your sales background and don't be humble about it. I know you kind of like pass over it, but Ian, literally one of the top folks at Salesforce, which is obviously the leading CRM program in the world. And so can you give folks some background, your experience as you mentioned kind of doing this coaching thing on the side and now full time, and maybe you could share some of kind of your experiences.
Sure. Before I started coaching full time, I was a strategic account director at Salesforce. So I did that for almost 9 years, and I basically was in charge of selling the whole Salesforce bag to our largest enterprise accounts. So think Tableau and Slack and MuleSoft and Marketing Cloud and 200 plus products. So my job was really to build strategic relationships with the C-suite, with executives, and then bring our team in, bring the right solutions in, and really help them achieve their biggest goals or solve their biggest problems. And the cool thing about Salesforce is we had a very, very robust set of offerings that could do that. So I got really, really good at getting in the door with executives, positioning, a broader value proposition, and ultimately solution selling. And so as I was doing that, I got tasked a lot with leading trainings at Salesforce for the enterprise AEs. And I said, this is a lot of fun. And so I started this side hustle a couple years ago, and it really took off. So that's a bit about my background at Salesforce. But before that, I actually ran sales for Southern California, a company called Rico. And I had 80 sales reps. I ran a $60 million business, built that up. 80 sales reps and 10 sales teams. So I kind of have that unique background where I've carried a bag as an AE, but also was in leadership and, was the only director of sales who was over planned. This was in 2008, 2009, Great Recession kind of period. And I grew my business 30% in copiers. So pretty much my whole career, I've been coaching and leading and trying to apply these principles. And now I get to do it full time. And that's a lot of fun. And I'm really happy and excited because I know it works in my life, and now I've seen it work for my clients, and now we get to see how it works at scale. So a lot of uncertainty in the future, but I have a lot of faith that what I'm teaching is really needed in the market today, and I've seen the results with my clients. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, so Ian's business exploded as he is going on the scene to help folks one-on-one. I'd love to. I know we're going to talk general kind of goal setting, but can you share a little bit about your personal journey, right? Being a super well-known, successful company, having great success there, and you're kind of, what you went through mentally to say, hey, I'm going to leave this thing really stable and do my own thing. Maybe some of your own, as you thought about your goals for next year and your life.
I think I want to share something that's relevant to goal setting.
Yeah.
And it's relevant, I think, to my journey. So a lot of people think I'm like wildly successful and whatnot. And I want to be very clear. I had 3 years in a row at Salesforce where I missed quota. And that's why I get so bullish and excited about what I'm doing. In my sales career, out of 18 full years, I hit quota 15 years. So it's a very good track record, but there was a 3-year period where I came in and I missed my number. And that's because I was making this transition from transactional sales to enterprise strategic selling. And so for me, I always thought you had to out hustle and outwork people. And that was always my DNA. My mom is very much a hard worker and supporter, and she's awesome. And that was a role model, but I try to take that same work ethic and grind and hustle into enterprise software, and it didn't work. And so my journey started, I think my real journey into self-development and growth and, taking my performance to the next level started in 2017. So that's when I realized, hey, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe I'm not God's gift to sales, because I truly was at a rock bottom in my career. So I actually got help. So whereas, if you have your own goals and you're talking about your own ambitions, ultimately you're going to be extremely ineffective 9 times out of 10 in doing that if you don't have a mentor or a guide along the way. So since 2017, I've been getting mentorship from the best of the best in order to get to number 1 at Salesforce and really get to that elite performer level, which I've been at for the past 5 years. But I wasn't always there. So I joined a personal mastermind. I specifically invested $25,000 of my own hardworking dollars to get a sales coach, to be in a mastermind, to get training. And that year I finished number 1. Well, that same kind of path, I've continued to invest. So when I started to realize I wanted to do coaching, I joined a program called Brand Builders Group, and again, invested, $12,000 just to start the program, to get mentorship, leadership, how to build a brand. That's how I met Jack. Right. And so, from an investment standpoint, I've always continued to invest in, and I'll bring one more very personal thing up in that I had some personal struggles and challenges with addiction and with impulsive activity. And that was affecting, my personal life. My business was great, but I had problems at home and in my marriage. And so I got help again, and I went to a 12-step group for addiction recovery, got a sponsor, and now I've been almost 2 years sober from multiple vices that, frankly, a lot of people think are acceptable, but for me, it wasn't acceptable in my life, and it wasn't helping me. So I got rid of, it's been literally 2 years since I smoked pot, got drunk, taken Adderall, played video games, gambled, or watched any type of porn. Now, I don't know any guys out there that can say that right now. And that frankly is what I'm most proud of, because that took more strength and discipline. And it just made me such a better father and such a better husband. Yeah. And I apply that into my teachings with my sales coaching. And that's very unique. I call it addition by subtraction. By subtracting the things that don't serve you, we make space for the things that do. And so when it comes to, again, goal setting and, my personal mission, my story, it's always been find the best of the best, find people who've walked the path before you, and enroll with them, enroll in their programs, get that help, get that support, follow the program. Don't try and reinvent the wheel, because if what you're doing is not working, or you can't do it on your own, then clearly, it's time to take to slice a humble pie and get some help. And that's where I feel like a lot of people struggle, is they just, think they can do it all. And then they're frustrated because they're not changing their performance or results. So anyway, that's been my journey in a 5-minute kind of, briefing, but I've never stopped that personal development and professional development.
Appreciate you sharing, bro. That's a lot. Yeah.
Well, and something I want to say too, right? So going from missing quota to being number 1 is clearly amazing, right? That's a huge, huge accomplishment. And it seems like you sought a lot of help, spent a lot of money to be able to do that. I know in sales, it's never one thing that we can change. It's always like a bunch of the little things. But what were a couple of the main things you learned in those programs that you feel like really helped you get better?
If I could break it down to kind of 1 or 2 things, the first thing is deal size. So for me, what I was doing before, so my quota those years was around $2 million. So my average deal size was around 100K. That means I'd have to sell 20 deals, 20 software deals, and selling software is a longer sales cycle. It requires a lot of change. So it's not a transactional sale. So I'd have to sell 20 deals. So when I missed my quota my third year, I missed it by one deal, but I had sold more than everyone else on the team in terms of number of deals.
Yeah.
And so the big shift was, instead of spending a little bit of time on a lot of opportunities that are smaller, I spent a lot of time on very few opportunities that were a lot bigger, which leads me to my number 2 takeaway, right? Which is, in order to get those bigger opportunities, you have to make sure you're working with power. You have to make sure you're working with executives that actually are tasked with transforming their companies, that solving the biggest problems, getting their companies to the next level, fending off competitors. These are things fundamentally that, if you're working with an individual in a small department, they're not thinking about the broader, well-being of the entire company, their employees, their customers. They're thinking about their specific role or task or MO, right? So I started reaching out to executives in the highest level, CEOs, COOs. I started doing a lot more research, coming up with more of a tailored point of view on where and how I could help them. And I really started facing my fear. My fear before was that I couldn't add value, that I couldn't hold a conversation, that I couldn't, share a room with these executives because they were so high up. But when I realized, hey, I'm just like them, right? And we all put our pants on the same way. And I actually faced my fear and started reaching out and meeting with them. I realized, these are some of the most, I relate better to most of these executives than I do the lower level folks that are just focused on one thing, because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, I'm trying to transform, results. So I could speak their language. And that's really, I think, what I've been doing the past 5 years that's different is focusing on bigger deals and getting executive sponsorship to really support some very ambitious projects that have a material impact for the company. And when you do that, the budget just comes, executives come, and ultimately it's about finding a change agent, or what CEB calls a mobilizer in the company, that actually can bring in the rest of the team and move the needle quickly in making decisions. Because if you're working with someone who doesn't have that pull or influence, or they can't get everyone in the room, then it can get stalled, as you have, on average, maybe 10 stakeholders or 11 in each of these large deals. So you need someone who can rally the troops, get them together, and actually pull the key stakeholders, in the same room to see what you're doing and to get that buy-in. So those are more than one thing, but that's really my focus the past 5 years.
Good.
No, thank you. And you mentioned this at the beginning too, that you got really good at getting in with these executives. So do you mind, I don't know if you have a pitch, right? But do you mind sharing like how you would get your foot in the door with these people?
Yeah. For every one email you send, you spend 5 hours researching, coming up with a point of view. People do batch and blast bullshit cadences all the time. I hate it. I'm on the receiving end of these. It feels non-personal. The hyper personalization of your message to the individual and to the account, actually coming up with a solid point of view on what they care about and how you can help them, and being very, very direct and clear, not vague, with your value proposition of what you can do, absolutely is essential, right? The more clear and relevant the message, the more likely you are to get in. That's number one. Number two is you got to stay on it like a bee on honey. I'll use a nice analogy. You literally have to stick with it, right? Because these executives are so busy. So even if your message is perfect, you have to follow up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And I make follow up across channels, right? I'll send a video message on LinkedIn. I'll send customer references. I'll send tailored notes. Every time I follow up, I'm giving an additional context. I'd recommend a book. It's called The Challenger Customer. It's by CEB, the folks who did Challenger Sale. It's the newest book. It's really good. So it talks about like selling these complex deals. And in there, in the book, it talks about the concept of one insight. In every piece of follow-up is to expand upon that commercial insight. So when I send my first message, the second isn't completely different. It's not a different value prop. It's an expansion. So if I send them how I think I can help them with operating profits, the next message will be here's a little more detail on what we've done. The third message will be here's some customers who have achieved similar results. The fourth message will be, hey, here's a study from Forrester that shows what happens when companies focus on this. The fifth study. So it's like literally expanding on that.
So So we started this kind of series, Ian being, kind of right in the middle of, we went back and got like our best experts on LinkedIn and said, but hey, what about goal setting for 2022? And the reason we're in this series, and I wanted to tie back to kind of Ian's decision to start his business, was like, hey, God willing, we're finally coming out of COVID. 2 was COVID started all of us at this new work from home environment. And now what are we going to do? Hybrid, stay at home, have to go in the office. Then it's clearly an employee's market out there today. We all know that, right? The job market is very, very aggressive. And as companies come out of COVID, a ton of folks are hiring, and a lot of folks are figuring out, should they stay? Should they look at new things? And then lastly, there's clearly some uncertainty in the economy with all the supply chain issues, inflation. And so those 4 variables really affecting a lot of people as they think about 2022 and the decisions they'll make. And as we talked about it internally, it was like, what people do in 2022 could have an effect on them for 3 or 4 years going forward. And so we wanted to bring in some of the best folks like Ian that have had great success and kind of share their perspective on that. And so I want to talk about it in general, Ian, but can we just go back one last time to your personal decision to start your own business, at the end of this year, and kind of what was your thought process? Again, is because I think a lot of folks are in that kind of like, should I take a new gig? Get paid a lot? Should I start my own gig? And can you maybe just share your personal journey with that and kind of some of the things you were analyzing? And then we'll kind of talk maybe generally as we think about goal setting for some of your clients.
Yeah. I mean, the decision was rooted, and it's really simple. We're all going to die. As cryptic as that sounds, we're all going to die. And when you're on your deathbed, do you want to regret not living a life true to yourself and following and chasing your dreams? And that, to me, has been absolutely the foundation of why I'm doing this, right? I have a deep calling, a deep desire to help serve and help really transform the industry of sales and what it means to be in sales. And that was calling at me every single day. And so when the calling got so loud, I couldn't ignore it anymore, then I knew it was time to take a leap of faith. Because frankly, I had saved up enough money. I mean, I wouldn't say just quit your job and go. I didn't do this haphazardly. I did it very calculated. I started the program Brand Builders in 2019, almost 3 years ago, right? So I started building a brand. I created an audience. I started coaching in my spare time. I was building content. I was fundamentally proving out the model for 2 years. And once I got to the point where my income actually surpassed Salesforce, it was like, this is just crazy that I'm not doing this full time. So that's what happened in 2021. I actually had a higher income with my coaching business than Salesforce. And it was like, okay, there's no excuse now, right? So I really do believe that if you think about what you want to be doing, if you're unhappy in your life in any area, whether it's your career, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your health, right? If not now, when? Right. And that's kind of how I live my life is, I unfortunately, my father died when I was very young. I was 20 years old. He was 53. My cousin, who I was close with, passed when he was 47. My boss, my first boss at Salesforce, passed at 49. So I've seen people very close to me pass young, and I'm 42. You call it a midlife crisis, call it what you want. But the truth is that I believe that I was put on this earth with certain gifts, and I want to use them to better the world. And what I'm teaching and what I want to teach is not just sales training. It's how to actually go after your goals, right? Talk about goal setting. It's how to identify your goals and go after them. It's how to face your fear. It's how to fix things that you fundamentally are not happy with about yourself. Because when you do those things, the sales follow. When you become the best person you can be, you also become the best salesperson. So that's what I'm teaching. And that's what I've had to do in my own life. And that's why I bring up my personal challenges, my personal struggles, because it's made me a freaking 100 times better coach in helping people with spending time where they need to. Because half the time it's not sales coaching, it's therapy. And it's helping them do shit that is holding them back. And everyone's got something. Everyone's got issues. So I do believe, for me, when I realize it's not about me anymore, and I let go of my ego, and I realize like the gifts I want to serve and use to better the world and help other people, when I saw the impact, I'm like, I have to do this. It's my calling. It's also a mission of faith for me. I believe in God, and I fundamentally I've been saved many times. And I do believe that, for me, this is a calling that's bigger than me, and it's about helping and serving people and helping elevate kindness and love in the industry of sales, so people show up the right way for their customers and for their colleagues, because there's so much toxicity in sales culture that I just feel like it's done, a lot of it's done wrong. So if I can elevate that, that helps too. So that all these callings, all this mission, every day I was thinking all day, and I'm like, I just can't ignore this anymore.
Yeah.
So that's what led to me leaving.
Yeah, we'll leave it at this 20 minutes. You have mixed in so many subtle messages and so many nuggets of gold through the process. And so I appreciate you sharing the part about your personal journey. When we start to think about goal setting in general, right? And you started to talk about it. What are your thoughts about it for 2022 with your clients as you start to, as you advise and think about, and what's your perspective?
I think what people fail to do is set, the personal goals. A lot of people have goals for financial. I want to make this much money. I want to buy this house. I want to sell this much. But I can talk about goal setting for a long time. But I think if you look at kind of like goal setting, you have to think about the buckets of the goals. So I have buckets for different goals that I have. I have goals for my health. For example, I'm signed up to run a marathon in October. Last year this year in 2021, I ran a half marathon. Freaking loved it. I loved it. So I'm like, I'm going to push myself bigger. That's the health bucket. Then there's the marriage bucket, right? So goals around your marriage. For me, I have, you're starting that journey very soon, Andrea. But for me, it's about making sure that I continue what I'm doing. There's nothing drastically new, but like renewing my vows would be a great thing that we've talked about. That will go on my goal list. I haven't done my 2022 yet, but that'll go on my goal list for my marriage. Another goal is just continue kind of what's working well. So every day I have lunch with my wife, right? For an hour. It breaks up the day. It builds that connection. We have our date nights on Friday. We take trips on the weekends, right? That's really, for me, critical. So thinking about the areas in your life that you're not happy with, whether it's relationships, whether it's health, whether it's finances, whether it's sales, right? That's the foundation for goal setting, is identifying where am I not happy right now, and what do I need to do about it, right? So for me, I always have these buckets. I have a home bucket right now, which my office right now, it's kind of like, I will show you. It's totally in transition. So if we look at this, I'm sitting on a shoebox right here because fundamentally I'm lower and I want to be higher because I'm doing a lot of podcasts and videos. So I have a little shoebox for my desk. So I bought a standing desk. So I want to get that set up. I want to move my stuff over. I want to get my office to be, as tricked out as possible. So it's super professional. I can record, I can do podcasts, I can do everything. So that would be on the home goal bucket, home improvement bucket. So I literally have all these buckets, and simply taking the time to identify the buckets and then all the things you want to do is part one. Right? Part two. So that's what I do with my clients. I literally think about, where are you unhappy with yourself? We go through what I call the life wheel, where we look at all the different areas of life, from career to finances to family to relationships to friendships to community service, if that's something that's important, to faith and spirituality. So it's really unique to each client in terms of what they want to focus on, but everyone's different. But finding those things that are important to you, that you're saying I should, and turning into I will, is where I feel like the most joy and fulfillment comes from, is when you're actually taking steps towards becoming the person that you want to be, versus having a goal that's at the end of, the goal should be ongoing. The goal should be daily. The goal should be weekly, right? So it's not about getting in shape. It's about going to the gym 4 days a week, or training for a half marathon the first 6 months so you can run it in July and August, right? So again, I think when I think about goal setting, where most people fail, I think 95% of people abandon their goals by February in the new year. And that's because they don't have an action plan. They don't have a strong reason for wanting to do it. So for me, it's all about the calendar, frankly. It's all about putting these things in the calendar, making part of your daily and weekly routines. So I mentioned date night. That's an example. I mentioned lunch with my wife. These are examples of embedding these goals into your week, your life, your day. And that's what makes goal setting successful, because then you start to up-level your identity and become an athlete, become a good father, become a good husband, become a a great salesperson because of the things you're doing, not because of an end result that you're working towards. That's the big difference. So focus on the process and not the outcome, and the outcomes will follow. That's all I coach. That's all I teach people to do.
So how often are you do you advise to check in or kind of assess where you're at?
I generally would say you want to check in weekly. I mean, you want to make sure your goals are weekly. At that level, it's very effective, right? Daily is a little more tactical, what the day brings depending on your calendar. But any goal you set should be at least have a weekly time frame, right? So if I'm trying to improve my marriage, I keep going back to that. Maybe it's marriage counseling once a week and find a counselor by the end of January, right? And then go every week. Or maybe it's, date night, whatever it is. I'm just using that as an example because a lot of people can relate to that. But if that's an important goal to improve the quality of my relationship with my significant other, then that has to have actions during the week. It's not like it's just going to happen on its own. So it's not a matter so much of checking in. It's more a matter of putting it on your calendar and making sure you're actually executing it. Because if you're executing it, there's no need for a check-in. Okay. Yeah. Now, as far as like sales goals, that's I wouldn't change a thing for the sales goal. So if your goal is to make $1 million in sales, what is it going to take to get there? How many conversations do you need to have? What types of companies are going to be your target list? Who specifically in those companies are the most important people to talk to? What is your point of view? So having a plan, if I was trying to sell $1 million by month 1, I would identify all my target accounts and I'd have a point of view developed and I'd identify the people and I'd have research completed, for example. By month 2, I'd start to do my outreach. By month 3, I want to engage in conversations and see if I can find opportunities. By month 4, we want to be doing deep discovery and getting sponsorship. So kind of having a path, which goes back to having mentorship and guidance. If you're working with people who know the path, then they can inform and help you with creating the right plan. So the big thing that you want to do, Andrea and Jack, is make sure that you plan the attack and then you attack the plan. So the time that you spend planning the attack is so much more important than the actual attack and the plan. You've got to have the right plan in place. You've got to have the buckets. You've got to have I put it all on my calendar. Every single day I put what I'm doing on my calendar. So I know today I'm going for a 4-mile run. I know today that I'm going to post a video later today because it's all on my calendar. So if the plan is build a personal brand, how do you do that? Well, for me, it started a couple of years ago and it was post every single week, a new video, get that on YouTube, LinkedIn, on my newsletter. And that thing has grown, great, but it started with being consistent on the plan. So that's the key. Is like you have to have things you are doing every week consistently that get you towards the goal versus, how are we progressing against this number or against this?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a recipe for failure every time. You don't want to have check-ins. You want to have actual calendar events that are weekly. That's the key for me anyway.
No, I love that.
It's interesting. There's 2 things you said that I just want to circle back on. One is the weekly part. I think that's so interesting. I think folks sometimes set goals and are like, by mid-year I want to lose so much weight, or I want to go run, or I want to have sales, and it's so far out they delay it. You know what I mean? We're human beings. We're prone to procrastinate. So they're like, I really don't have a real action item until March. So then they March are like, screw it, I don't care so much. So I love the idea of weekly. It forces you to take an action and regularly. And so I think that's great. And then the other thing, no doubt, in this time we spent together, you can feel your passion for how much the personal side of someone's life integrates with their professional success, right? And we hear a lot about goal setting, about what's your professional goals? Where do you want to work? I even, I mentioned at the top of the show, I'd love for you, can you share more about that? Because it's clear as you share, it's a big part of your guidance to people. And I think folks overlook that. They're like, I'll get to my personal life later.
Hell no. Here's what's, I don't know the language on this. I guess I'll not drop F-bombs. I'll try to be.
God, we're not, what is it? We're not FCC. No one's
okay. So getting back to you're going to die, right? At the end of the day, you're dead. No one cares how much money you made. They don't care how many houses you had, what car you drove. What they care about is the impact you had on the lives of the people that you're with. What kind of father or husband or, person you've been. And so for me, the personal life it's a matter of integrity. Okay. When you live with integrity, that means being the same authentic person, both inside and outside of work.
Yeah.
I used to have literally dual personalities. I had my work life and then I'd have my personal life, and they were totally separate. And now it's just one me. I show up the same with my kids, with my wife, with you, with the client, because it's just me. And that's true freedom, right? True freedom is being your authentic, true self, regardless of where you are, right? Like it or not, like me or not, I don't care. I'm going to be me because that's all I can be. So I think for me, that's really, really important. When I think about personal life, if you have your personal life in shambles and you're doing shit that you're not proud of, I'm not going to name names. I have a lot of clients and they confide in me, and some of them have, some of them in their 20s, they're partying hard on the weekends, they're doing drugs, and they are really unhappy with that side of them because it doesn't match their values and beliefs about themselves. So the definition of integrity means whole or complete. It comes from the Latin word integer. Okay. And it means that you are a whole and complete person. So if you have half of you that's not complete and the other half is complete, you are broken. So that's why the personal and the work life need to integrate, right? So if you have an unhappy marriage, or you have addictions on the side, or you have things that you're doing and hiding that you're not proud of, and then you're putting on a face for work, I promise you that shit's going to catch up with you, okay? Yeah. And it's a lack of authenticity. You're putting on it's Jekyll and Hyde, basically. And so again, my struggles, my personal overcoming of addictions and struggles has enabled me to understand the power of what's on the other side when you actually face your demons and become the person you want to be. So anytime I have a graph that I share with my client, and the first chart goes top to the right. Just picture this graph for a second. And this is the integrity graph. And this is the x-axis right here is achievement, and the y, or the x-axis is time, the y-axis is achievement. So think of a line going up to the right. So as we get older, we expect our achievement to do better, right? We expect to acquire more things. We expect our careers to flourish. We expect to be married, have kids, whatever in our personal lives. In this lower line right here, which is right here, is our actual actions and behaviors. And this distance right here is the gap. So anytime your achievement, or specifically your identity, the first line is your identity line. It's your values and your beliefs. It's what you think you need to be doing or what you should be doing. Anytime your actions and your behaviors don't match your values and your beliefs and your principles, you are completely out of integrity. You are living a lie to yourself, and you're going to have a conflict, an internal conflict, because you are not doing the things you know you should and want to be doing, and how you view yourself. And that is the source of most people's misery. Their actions, their behaviors don't match their ideals. And so all they're doing is thinking about the things they're not doing, or the gaps that they don't have, and they're looking at all their flaws, right? But when you're actually living a life of integrity, you're taking action and doing the things that are ideal for you. If you see yourself as an athlete and you're training for a marathon, that is the line. There's no gap. Okay. If you see yourself as a good husband and you're spending time with your wife, nurturing your marriage, there's no gap. If you see yourself as a hard worker and you're prospecting and you're cold calling, you're showing up every single day and giving your all, there's no gap between your identity as a hard worker and your performance as a lazy bastard. So this is what, I mean, if I will be known for anything in life, this is what I want to be known for. It is bridging that gap and identifying gap. And that's all goal setting is. That's all it is. It's here's where I want to be. Here's where I am. How do we bridge the gap? Okay. So that is why the personal life is so important. If you don't have those goals, then you're going to feel inauthentic. You're going to feel like you're not being your true self. The second part of this is because I've seen this myself. People ask me, how do you have so much energy, dude? You talk so fast, you're going, how do you move like this? The truth is I optimize my energy. So the personal goals have to do with rest, diet, exercise, connection, and service. So those are my buckets where I know if I'm getting good sleep, I'm exercising, I'm eating healthy, I'm going to feel fundamentally better, and I'm going to work with more energy, and I'm going to optimize performance. So if you're sluggish and unhealthy, it's going to show up in your sales. So that's why this integration is so important, because you can't feel great and sell great if you're not, looking and feeling your best. That's my personal opinion. So I really focus on kind of those core things, because I know when you're proud of your personal life, it transcends and it flows right into your professional life, and you just dialed in on all areas, and that's how it should be, frankly.
It's awesome.
I agree. Can you talk about the importance of having a mentor, right? You brought it up at the beginning. If you're just making your own goals and just doing it yourself, like I think you might've said you're going to fail. So talk about the mentorship. Why is that so important?
I think, because we don't know what we don't know. We're going to have blind spots. We're going to have things. When I missed my quota 3 years in a row, I didn't know about consensus building in an organization. I didn't know the importance of getting multiple stakeholders on board. I also didn't know about, the importance of connecting with the CFO and building the right business case. And so these were all things that I wasn't doing. And because I wasn't doing this, I was losing deals. So when I got a mentor and I connected with, a CEO at a sales coaching company and also the top AE at Salesforce, I saw what they were doing that was different. And then I learned and grew by adapting their principles. So that to me is like what mentorship, I'll give my buddy Marcus Chan a shout out. So he mentors me and he's an awesome coach that's doing exactly what I want to do at scale. I was great on the one-on-one. He was great on the group. And so I approached him and I said, here's what I want to do. Now, by all means, we would be competitors, right? But Marcus, who has an abundant heart, who's giving and loving and generally wanting to up-level the entire industry, said, I'll take you under my wing. And we text each other. He coaches me. We just spoke together at an event at Salesforce, Sales Success Summit together. He's incredible. And I consider him a dear friend. So having a path towards success from someone who's done it before, imposters, like there is no other way. I mean, otherwise, how do you figure it out? It's everything to have a mentor.
I'd say to add to that is somebody, the world is a big place. Somebody's already been where you want to go, right? And finding that person, you don't have to learn it firsthand. Somebody already, whatever you personally are dreaming of, thinking about, picture yourself in 2 to 3 years, find somebody that's already been down that path. They've already burned themselves on the other.
Yeah.
You don't have to relearn it. Find a great mentor. They'll fast track you, be like, oh, here's 7 learnings. Don't repeat these errors, right?
It's a pride thing. It's an ego thing. People think they know it all, and it's just hurting them. So you're right. It's why pay tuition? Why have to learn the hard way? Why have to fall on your face? I fell on my face so many times, and I think there is good lessons in that. And but I fundamentally was very, very unhappy with myself because I could not. I only got mentorship and coaching when I came to a point where I realized, my way was not the best way, or maybe I didn't have the answers. And that takes humility. That takes, actually saying maybe I'm not so great. And that's hard for people. I want to be mindful. It was hard for me until I really had failed 3 times in a row, 3 years in a row of missing my target is what it took. So I get it, but why have to go through that? That was really painful for me and my family.
We stink as humans, don't we? We always have to almost hit rock bottom, whether it's recovery or insane. It's like we always have to do it the hard way. We taught to our kids don't do it the hard way, but we're wild.
Yeah, it's like a catch-22. It's like you don't know until you fall on your face sometimes. But there's a lot of people out there, especially now with the internet. Where it is and social and LinkedIn, there's so many people giving away shit. I have 100 videos on YouTube on how to train. So many people giving away content that is genuine, authentic, real in terms of how to actually get to the next level in literally every single industry. So I think that fundamentally, people like to learn and develop, but applying the content and actually having hands-on support through a coach or through a program like Brand Builders or the one I was in, a lot of people, when it comes to investing in themselves, they have a lot more resistance. But here's my question: who would be willing to invest in you if you're not willing to invest in yourself? That's for me is think about it, right? So it is the best ROI. Once I started actually doling out cash and paying money for hands-on support, the level of it's different than watching a video or reading a book.
Sure.
You have someone working with you. So I want to draw that distinction a little bit. You do have to spend a little money to really get the support that you might need outside of just watching and reading books. You to have to apply it yourself.
And there's a question right in the comments. So I think Sean's asking, hey, in your experience, how much new business are you needing to book in a year to make $100 million in commission?
Like $1 million.
It has nothing to do with new business, per se. It has to do with your comp plan. So I made $1 million twice in my career, and it has to do specifically with knowing how to maximize your comp plan. generally where I've seen people make $1 million, they have comp plans. I would say 250K and above on target earnings, and they're over 300% of plan. And that 300 to 400% of plan is really the sweet spot where you can make it. Because if you're 250K and you're getting 300-400%, that leads to $1 million, especially if you tack on spiffs or bonuses or other things like multi-year. So knowing your comp plan really well, knowing how you're maximizing. I have a great video, Sean, on my YouTube, which says how to make $1 million a year, and I break down kind of all the different components there. But I would say from a percentage of new business, it's all about growth. I never got paid on renewals, so it was all new business. It was either net new logos or expansion business, which is growth on top of the ARR a customer is already spending. So in order for you to make $1 million, it really does require, if you, it depends on your comp plan. I've seen it, people do it selling $2 million who had a target quota of about 600K. So they were like 300% of quota. And I've seen people do it selling $6 million. In my case, where the first year I did it, my quota is around 1.6. So I was like close to 400% of plan. So it really has to do with the comp plan and the accelerators and where you get paid when you're over that comp plan.
I would, we're going to end the time. You've been doing your own gig now for a couple months. Can you share maybe your biggest learning so far as some folks that maybe, I think, look at 2022 and maybe they're exploring doing their own thing? Like, can you share maybe your best 1 or 2 learnings as you've left one of the biggest companies, most successful companies in the world, and now doing your own gig?
So in order to say yes to the most important things, you have to say no to the things that aren't. So learning to say no and actually not being a people pleaser for me is the most important thing. You have to prioritize. You have to identify what is the most critical thing in your business that needs to get done and say no to everything else. And that to me is so foundational. So identifying the top revenue generating activities, the top things that for me, it's building this platform, building this program so I can scale. That has been laser focused, and then getting some of the infrastructure set up. And I have to say no to a lot of stuff like, hey, Ian, can I pick your brain? Hey, Ian, how do you get in Salesforce? Hey, I get so many messages and I'm just like, I'm not being rude about it. I respond, right? But I just tell people right now, I can't take, one-on-one calls because I'm busy building my platform. So I think that's really important. There's a great book called Essentialism, which dives deep into like, what are the essential things you need to do? And it's all about, again, saying no so you can say yes to the core few things. That's number one for me.
Thank you so much for being on the show, by the way. I know you're packed, so appreciate that.
I got you, baby. I got you.
Dre, any last things for you?
No, I think that's good. I think that we've discussed this. It's funny a couple times on the show, right? Being able to say no, because it's like in your human nature that if somebody says, hey, can you do this or can you do that? Can you write this email? Even personal, right? You automatically want to say yes or come up with an excuse as to why. So I agree. That's something that I've struggled with. It's usually just like, hey, I'll do it. But in my head, I'm like, why would I say yes? I don't want to do that, or I don't have time. So I think that's something I've gotten more comfortable with also.
Yeah, there is a for everyone listening. I'm assuming this is recorded. I can post it later on and share.
Yeah.
I think we're getting into some stuff that I love to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and I frankly think this is what people need. It's not how to negotiate better, how to hit this decision maker. It really is how to be a better version of yourself. Right? Goal setting and improving and striving to be better is the foundation for a wonderful life. And so, if you want help with this, there is a phenomenal book, my all-time favorite. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It breaks into goal setting quite a bit, and they have something in there called the Eisenhower Quadrant. If you Google Eisenhower Quadrant or Stephen Covey Quadrant, you'll see it, but it breaks it into a 4 quadrant. I wish I had my whiteboard, I can show it. But the 4 quadrant is essentially top left is important and urgent, top right is important but not urgent, bottom left is not important and urgent, and the bottom right is not important and not urgent. So if you literally just spend all your time on the things that are important and urgent, or important and not urgent, and say no to the non-important urgent things, are where a lot of people get screwed. Those are other people's problems. They're not your problems. They're not your requests. They're things coming at you that generally do not advance your business or your goals, right? So being able to say no to those things and delegate those out is foundational. And then the bottom right is where I call like the dead zone. That's like getting on your phone, checking the news, going in and just wasting time. That fundamentally is your distraction zone. So even if you're, whatever your pick your poison, right? Whether it's checking the news, sports, YouTube, social media, the distractions are everywhere. So the more you can cut off the source of distractions for me. I've had to take a lot of apps off my phone. I took the news app off. I took social media so I can really be laser focused. Make it a little easy on yourself. So you really want to dive deep into how to say no. Think about the frame of that quadrant and what is really for you versus for other people that has nothing to do with you, or just simply distractions that are avoiding the hard things because they give you immediate pleasure or dopamine. Those are the things you want to get rid of so you can say yes to the good things. And most people live in that zone, unfortunately. That's why so many people don't hit their goals.
Listen, everybody, you control your phone. You control your phone, what's on it, alerts you get. Don't let the phone control you. Amen. Love Rich Dad. Love the 2 books for me are 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey, amazing. I think it's still on the New York Times bestseller list for decades. If you've not read that book, life-changing. It was that book and Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Kiyosaki.
Robert Kiyosaki. And
those 2 books changed, and that was, again, for me about 20 years ago. Those 2 books, again, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, amazing reads. Ian, how can folks reach you? Give them all the ways to reach out to you.
I'm super easy to find. You just Google me, you'll find me. I mean, LinkedIn is always the best place. If you message me on LinkedIn, I do have a link. I do have a newsletter. So everyone who message me or connect request, I give them the link. They can sign up. I have a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Ian Koniak. I have a website, www.iankoniak.com. I will have a new platform and course launching in Q1, but all that info will be on the website. You can go there and get launched out to that page that I'm actively working on right now. And you could always just, again, DM on LinkedIn is probably the best way to get me right now.
Awesome. What marathon are you running?
It's the Long Beach Marathon in October.
That's awesome. I'm scheduled to run the one in Waco for the the Gaineses. They run the one in Waco in April. So we'll see. They've canceled it the last 2 years because of COVID, but I think we're close. So that would
nice, man. You got to give me some pointers because it's my first one. So I'll hit you up.
We will see. So listen, appreciate your time. Any last thoughts, things you'd want to share with the audience? Any burning last things before we let you go?
Think about, if you died today, would you be happy with the life you lived in specifically around chasing your dreams, chasing your goals, being the person you want to be? And if the answer is no, right? What changes do you need to make? What do you need to start doing today? That's a great reference. It's actually part of the 7 Habits. If you recall, Jack, he has a whole chapter on that, which is like writing your own eulogy and known for. And it's like, it is such a good frame of reference to think about everything. Is like, look, I'm gone. Am I going to be proud of how I'm showing up? So just genuinely I'm no different than Jack, no different than Andrea. We're all here to be the best versions of ourselves. What's different about me is that I am pushing myself every day. I'm constantly, doing the things that I don't feel like doing to get where I know I want to go. So remember this: hard now equals easy later. Easy now equals hard later. That's my mantra for life. And that's why I show up every single day. And that's the truth. The more you self-sacrifice now, the more you invest in yourself, the more you do the hard things, the easier your life will be, the easier your future will be, right? You're paying the price now for a wonderful future later. And you know what? It feels damn good to pay the price. It feels good to work hard, to give your all, to show up every day. It feels a lot better than feeling like you're not hitting your potential. So go get it. Stop waiting. And you got this.
Bro, that's awesome. Appreciate your time. Listen, I would just say somebody's watching you grow. Super proud of you, watching you do big things, watching you grow. So super excited for your 2022 and beyond. We'll certainly be in touch soon. All right.
Let's go, baby. Come on.
Thank you so much. Stay safe. Have a great holiday.
See you guys. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes. I just want to piggyback on one thing before we end the show is when Ian says that, I think when folks, especially the younger you are, folks are like, oh, I have time. I'll get to it. And I think you can tell from Ian's level of excitement and focus, none of us are guaranteed 3 years from now, right? And it's like, hey, what are you doing now? And you can go get the things you want now, and being really focused on that, because we fall victim to like, I'll get to that one day, my job won't let me, I can't do it. And those are just really false restraints we put on our life, or we kind of delay, we procrastinate. And so as we go through this series of goal setting shows, just want to encourage folks to set some things now that are really aggressive, right, Jay? Like go get married.
I got a couple months. Now, I wanted to ask you, so do you also sit down with your wife and you go through like, hey, these are my goals. What are your goals? Do you do all that too?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? My wife is less structured. I am, so I try to like every year. You know, I'm packing, which is it's really a quick sidebar. I was packing. I found my goals from a couple years where I had written down, they're in my drawers and certain things, and so I always try to write them down, and then and for me, less than a half a dozen written down, like very specific things of like, hey, this is something I want to get done. Like one of the things I had this year is I wanted to read through the whole Bible. Right, big book, and so I'm on pace. I have a group of men that I'm reading it with, and so one of the things I wanted to accomplish this year was to actually say I've read every word of the Bible, and so that's a daunting goal every day to kind of dive in, and so for me that's how I do it, and then I try to share with my family, and sometimes they're locked in and ready to go, and sometimes they're like, oh yeah, you do that, and we'll hold you accountable. Yeah. So. Yeah, I would just say in that vein, you can't force somebody to go the extra mile. I think in life, we all know, like in Florida, you go down the intercoast, you see all these huge mansions. You're like, who in the heck lives in these places? Right,
that are empty.
Yeah, very few people get there. And so just encourage you, all of us, to find a good support system. But don't allow the 80% that aren't doing it to hold you back, because we live in the greatest country ever with enormous opportunity, and love watching Ian pursue his dreams. That guy, he says it in passing, but left one of the best jobs, if you missed it, making 7 figures to go do his own thing. That is very rare. And so God bless what he's doing. Amazing story. Encourage you to follow him on LinkedIn and all the different platforms he's offering. And we've done it with our sales team as well. So I can't recommend him enough. Good?
No, he's awesome.
Yes. Well, so we will see you next Wednesday. Oh, I have a graphic, I think. Listen, we have a couple other great guests coming on. Scott and Lise will be here next week. Amazing. Brenda Muller, we're going to wrap up the month with her. And so we will see you the next 2 weeks talking about goals. Have a great early December. Thank you for your time and energy. Much love. Wow. Yeah. Woo!